Before the dawn of this century, human flight seemed a distant and unlikely dream. Yet in the brief span of one lifetime, we have evolved from earthbound stargazers to a race of men and women who travel freely through the skies.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We have become courageous spacefarers on the edge of a vast frontier. The possibilities for tomorrow are limited only by our imagination. There's no better place in the world to gain perspective on our airborne accomplishments than at the National Air and Space Museum here in Washington, D.C. A little more than 80 years ago, the Wright brothers' first flight covered less ground than the space shuttle now occupies standing still. We've come so far this century that the sky is no longer the limit. It's just an invitation to fly farther, to look deeper, and to peer back at our own place in the universe. Future Flight takes us on a journey through the next century to explore events that haven't happened yet. World-renowned physicists, engineers, futurists, and science fiction writers have joined forces for this program to predict 10 exciting flights that could take place in the next 100 years. We begin our countdown to the flights of the future with the adventure that could come soonest, flight number 10. And by the time we arrive at flight number 1, we will have soared through the world of our children and our grandchildren. The 21st century has arrived. The skies are now home to a permanent orbiting space station. Standing at the edge of our new frontier, we're no longer visitors here, we are settlers. The space station is both home and office for the astronauts, so some of the cylindrical modules are living quarters, others are laboratories. There's even a supply module that the local residents call the corner grocery store. Shuttles frequently resupply the station with fresh food, water, and an international crew. As well as offering a lifeline today, the shuttle was also responsible for the birth of the space station. During the 1990s, shuttle astronauts doubling as hard hats assembled the 300,000-pound structure. It's difficult to believe that it was only 40 years ago, in 1961, that we took our first tentative steps into space.
All right, lift off and the clock has started. This is Freedom 7. The fuel is go.
Alan Shepard's Mercury flight lasted just 15 minutes and 22 seconds, but it was long enough to enter America in the race for space. In 1962, 40-year-old John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. As the nation watched, waited, and prayed, Friendship 7 left the bounds of Earth and headed towards orbit. Glenn made the landmark flight aboard a tiny 9.5-foot capsule. The astronaut once explained that you don't climb into a Mercury spacecraft, you put it on. Skylab, America's first orbiting space station, was launched in 1973. It was our first chance to see if we could really live in space. NASA was concerned about the prolonged effects of weightlessness on the astronauts. But the main side effect seemed to be short-term euphoria. America will never forget the devastating loss of the 7 Challenger astronauts. But even in the face of human tragedy, the nation's commitment to explore space continued. The shuttle program had already made tremendous advances in the ability of men and women to function in space, advances that would lead us into the 21st century. Now, in 2001, the permanent space station houses up to 20 men and women from a dozen nations, living and working 250 miles above the surface of the Earth. The station serves as a base of operations for the assembly, launching, and repair of satellites. With advanced communication systems, a 20th century dream has come true. Weather prediction is nearly 100% accurate. Space-produced pharmaceuticals are manufactured in quantity and purity, offering promise in the fight against some of the world's deadliest diseases. Station personnel are also responsible for periodic checkups on the remote-controlled space telescope. The free-flying observatory can see 14 billion light-years away, nearly to the edge of the universe. For the pioneers of the new millennium, the space station is just the beginning.
25 years have passed since I became the first American to orbit the Earth. And since then, we've walked in space, we've landed on the moon, and we have photographed close-up nearly every planet in our solar system. I'm proud to have been part of that beginning, and I'm in awe of our potential for the future. The children have already been born who will someday walk on distant planets. So when a young boy or girl looks up at the sky tonight and dreams, that child may truly be foreseeing his or her own destiny.
Well, I'm a very adventurous person. I would like to go where no man has gone before and improve mankind.
It would be fun to go into space because there's no gravity, and I want to be out of gravity's reach sometimes.
Well, I'd like to go to the moon because I'd like to see what it was like, the dirt and stuff.
I think my parents would be proud of me just to see me as an astronaut and go up into space. I wouldn't mind taking them along with me.
Traveling through a 21st century airport is something like visiting aviation in Wonderland. While waiting for lost luggage, yes, some things never change, passengers are treated to a visual array of shapes, sizes, and innovations. The fastest means of getting anywhere in the world is the aerospace plane. It takes off from a conventional runway and reaches a cruising speed of 8,000 miles per hour. That's 10 times faster than the old 747. The 300 passengers on board feel just a slight shudder as the plane pushes past the speed of sound. Despite sophisticated navigation and guidance systems, this is an airplane, and it requires a human pilot to fly the craft and control the scramjet engines that make hypersonic speeds possible. On this flight, a New York businesswoman who had breakfast at home will have lunch in Tokyo and be back in time for dinner and a concert at Carnegie Hall tonight. It wasn't that long ago that scientists believed airplanes would disintegrate if they tried to fly faster than the speed of sound. On October 14th, 1947, Captain Chuck Yeager sat in his Bell X-1, hoping that the experimental plane named after his wife would bring him home safely. The dangerous flight called for Yeager's small bullet-shaped plane to be dropped from the bomb bay of a B-29. The moment of truth approached. No one knew if Yeager would hit a so-called wall or if human flight could carry us beyond the speed of sound. Suddenly, the rumbling of distant thunder. The world had heard its first sonic boom. The sound barrier was forever broken. In an instant, one age of flight had ended and a new one had begun. As we learned to move through the skies at greater and greater speeds, we discovered new barriers. But new limits simply challenged the ingenuity of men and women who were willing to take us beyond possibility. It is this relentless quest for speed that compelled us to create new designs, stronger materials, and planes that fly faster than a speeding bullet. The aerospace plane was built on the lessons learned from everything that has ever flown before it. It had to be a commercial jetliner, a military transport, a space shuttle, and a rocket ship all rolled into one aircraft. In the year 2010, a regularly scheduled aerospace flight carries a new crew and fresh supplies to the orbiting space station. Instead of expensively blasting off from the Kennedy Space Center, the aerospace plane has efficiently taken off on its own power from Kennedy Airport. It is the aerospace plane that will one day carry individual visitors into space, not just astronauts or scientists, but curious citizens eager to venture beyond the bounds of Earth.
When we landed on the moon, it was the fulfillment of one dream and the beginning of many others. The limitless horizons of space suddenly held destinations rather than unreachable stars. When you look in the night sky, there is a beacon, slightly red and very bright, that captured our fascination centuries ago. Now, the dream of visiting Mars is real. And this planet, filled with scientific promise, is the site of our next encounter.
The year is 2015, and an international expedition is headed for the mysterious red planet that has always beckoned to mankind, Mars. As early as 1965, we had the technology to send a probe to investigate our second nearest planetary neighbor. After traveling 35 million miles, Mariner 4's black and white reports were disappointing. Rather than finding signs of life, the photos revealed a desolate, moon-like, crater-filled world. But subsequent Viking soft landings rekindled our hope. Although they did not discover any signs of life, they did show us extraordinary vistas, much like the magnificent deserts of the southwestern United States. One of the first scientists to predict a journey to Mars was physicist Robert Goddard. In the 1920s, in the face of public mockery, Goddard experimented with rockets. Even the New York Times said he lacked, quote, the knowledge ladled out daily in high schools. Fortunately, he persevered and in 1926 launched the world's first liquid fuel rocket. In 1969, when we landed on the moon, the New York Times apologized to Dr. Goddard. Nearly a century after Goddard proved it was possible, a ship propelled by a cryogenic mixture of frozen hydrogen and oxygen is completing its 6-month voyage to the red planet. The crew of 20 Earthlings transfers to a shuttlecraft that will take them to the planet's surface. Surviving in an atmosphere that is 95% carbon dioxide, each rotating crew is based in this hostile environment for a 2-year mission. Their hope is that Mars will teach us about our own planet's past, as well as its geological destiny. Experiments test the theory that Mars is surprisingly similar to pre-evolutionary Earth. Hovercraft explore Olympus Mons, the largest known volcano in our solar system. Mars also claims our galaxy's largest known canyon. The Valley of Mariner is 13 times larger than the Grand Canyon and would stretch from New York to California. To the spiritual descendants of Robert Goddard, Mars reveals itself as a land of extremes and a humbling tribute to the majesty of nature.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. This gives promise of someday providing a means for even more exciting and ambitious exploration of space, perhaps beyond the moon, perhaps to the very end of the solar system itself.
When my brother Jack committed the nation to land a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s, he was asking for more than just money. He was summoning Americans to come together in the spirit of his new frontier to meet the challenge of space. Imagination and enterprise took us to the moon, just as they have enabled us to achieve so much in other areas. A century ago, a popular common expression was, "It's as impossible as flying." But the experience of America has taught us that few goals are truly impossible if only we have the courage to seek them.
The year is 2025, and technology has carried us beyond President Kennedy's goal of landing on the moon. We're now able to commute to the moon. Once a month, an orbital transfer vehicle known as the Lunar Taxi shuttles passengers from the space station to the surface of the moon. Mankind's first odyssey to our shining neighbor came in 1969 on the wings of Apollo 11. Three men, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and Mission Commander Neil Armstrong, held our hopes, dreams, and prayers as they prepared to board the spaceship Columbia. The astronauts carried with them a piece of the propeller and fabric from the Wright Flyer, the first powered plane ever to lift man into the air. "600 million inhabitants of the planet Earth held a collective breath in front of their televisions as the lunar module made its treacherous approach.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May.
Apollo flights visited the moon 6 times, but the sense of joy and discovery never diminished.
Okay, we're headed that way. You get the tongs, John? Yep, we got. I'll carry the rake. Look at the size of that rock. Tony, how about an extension, you guys? We feeling good?
To land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth, a dream had been fulfilled. Now, in 2025, the Lunar Taxi makes scheduled visits to the moon. The ride takes 3 days and carries 6 passengers from the space station to the moon base. Arrivals at the Advanced Commercial Mining Base notice the improvement in the moon's newly developed neighborhoods. In the old days, temporary housing had been constructed of fuel and payload sections from used rockets. The moon houses had to be buried in lunar soil called regolith to protect the settlers from lethal cosmic rays. Ironically, the most valuable and vital commodity on the moon is its dirt. Regolith is over 40% oxygen and can be processed into breathable air, drinkable water, usable fuel, and habitable homes. From one small step back in 1969, we have become the gardeners of an airless garden. Although we're still pilgrims here, we are conquering the obstacles of survival. As the engineers, mineral miners, and construction workers make their way in this foreign land, the Mayflower heads back to the space station to retrieve the one unlimited resource that will tame this wilderness. More pilgrims.
The idea for the Voyager flight that took Dick Rutan and myself non-stop around the world began with a quick sketch on a napkin, a humble beginning for something that no one had ever tried before. When you look back at heroes like Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart, people who had the courage to be the first, you realize that they were not just a part of history, they were also taking a step toward the future. The spirit and accomplishments of those who flew before give each new generation a chance to take their own first steps, a chance to fly into the future.
Welcome to the first annual Space Cup race, the long-awaited solar sailing competition. 5 gigantic ships with sail spans up to 30 miles wide and cabins carrying courageous 2-person crews race to be the first to circle the moon, cross the finish line in Earth orbit, and bring the coveted Titanium Cup home to their own continent. This is the first time solar sailors have attempted to capture the power of the sun in an outer space regatta. As long as humans have flown, there have been fearless pilots trying to do things that no one has ever done before. Amelia Earhart was an aviator whose courage knew no bounds. She was the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean by air, the first woman to fly it alone, the first woman to fly across the United States alone, and the first woman to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross. Amelia Earhart made her last flight in 1937. She disappeared while attempting to fly around the world. Basked in sunlight, the solar sails approach their turnaround point, the moon. They are carried forward by photons of light at speeds of up to 5,000 miles per hour until they cross the sweeping shadow of the moon. Then they will be completely dependent on the energy stored in their solar collectors. Although the sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth, it has been our co-pilot in flight for many years. Back in 1981, a 200-pound miracle of a plane called the Solar Challenger, laden with 16,000 solar cells, proved that sunlight could power extended flight.
Staying right there, quivering.
The plane's inventor, Paul McCrady, had a vision of harnessing the sun's powerful light and turning it into enough energy to lift a human being into the sky. The Solar Challenger was simply the graceful embodiment of a craft that had already soared in the imagination of Paul McCrady. The intrepid solar sailors have cleared the dangerous dark side of the moon. And now, on day 10 of the Space Cup, the competitors approach the finish line. This is, of course, a sad day for the Australians, who had to drop out before the race due to computer malfunctions. But the Asian and North American teams have been neck and neck for the last 200,000 miles, carefully avoiding each other's shadows. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one for the record books. Blasting out of lunar orbit, an expedition of 40 space pioneers begins a perilous 3-year journey. Their mission is to explore our solar system's mysterious giant, Jupiter. As inhabitants of a tiny world, we Earthlings have a difficult time understanding the colossal size of this planet. But consider this, it would take 1,000 Earths to make up the volume of Jupiter. As far as we can tell, there's no solid surface to Jupiter. Just a vast sphere of gaseous clouds and liquid hydrogen that may be 10,000 miles deep. What lies beneath the strange and beautiful face of this planet is one of our universe's most intriguing scientific puzzles. The technology of the 20th century has brought us close, but so far, Jupiter's clouded mysteries have eluded human understanding. The Voyager space probes left Earth in 1977. After a series of near disasters and tension-filled months at California's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Voyager successfully rendezvoused with Jupiter in 1979. The 500 million-mile voyage brought us more intimate portraits than ever before. The planet's swirling cloud patterns are propelled by winds measured at a brisk 340 miles per hour. The largest cloud pattern, the Great Red Spot, is actually a violent storm that has been raging in the same location for nearly 400 years. The storm is so large that it could easily hold 3 Earths placed side by side. Voyager also gave us a closer glimpse of Jupiter's mini solar system. Of the 16 intriguing moons, Io is about the size of our moon and has at least 8 active volcanoes. Its constant flowing lava makes it the most geologically active body in our solar system. Europa is a small moon covered by a smooth, icy crust. And with an average temperature of 200 degrees below zero, its climate can safely be described as inhospitable. In another land of eternal ice, in another time, Earthbound explorers once conquered the endless frozen expanses of the Antarctic. The expedition, led by Admiral Richard Byrd, headed through violent winds and bitter cold to establish an outpost at the South Pole. In 1933, this journey was just as perilous as a trip to a distant planet would be for future pioneers. Admiral Byrd's men fought time and the elements as the darkness of a 5-month winter night relentlessly approached. To monitor the extreme conditions, they set up the southernmost branch of the U.S. Weather Bureau. With temperatures hovering around 65 degrees below zero, the men dug a small underground shack. Food and supplies were stored in tunnels to avoid bone-chilling trips outside. Admiral Byrd bid his men farewell and prepared to face his lonely vigil. For the next 5 months, he would inhabit his own icy planet as an expedition of one. The year is 2057. Twin reconnaissance ships traveling in tandem for safety carry the first human travelers to the cold, forbidding moons of Jupiter. The expedition establishes a base on the icy crust of Europa. These explorers hope to be the first to discover extraterrestrial life. Measurements indicate that Europa's surface is just a thin crust protecting a warm sea. If some watery form of life does exist here, what could it be? A bathysphere probes the waters, while the anxious humans wait and wonder. Meanwhile, others in the expedition have a brief encounter with Jupiter's fiery moon, Io. The threat of constant volcanic eruptions prevents the visitors from lingering, and lava flows will soon erase any evidence of our ever having been there. From back at the base at Europa, a robotic probe is sent on a suicide mission to Jupiter, where no human can ever venture. Before the probe is vaporized by infernal temperatures and crushing pressures, it has 1 hour to tell us the multicolored secrets of Jupiter. This intimate examination through layers of clouds and explosive electrical storms could explain the genesis of our entire solar system. While taking one last look at Jupiter, one of the Earthlings is overheard to say, "We've just seen the face of creation." Asteroids. Millions of rocky, miniature planets that float through our solar system have proven to be the most profitable reason for sending humans to work in space. These rocks are actually loaded with resources worth billions of dollars. A reconnaissance team samples the asteroid's surface materials, measuring amounts of iron, nickel, and platinum. In the gold rush days of the 1800s, these folks would have been prospectors competing to stake the best claim. But now, in the year 2066, this is a cooperative international venture sharing a motherlode of mineral riches. This asteroid is relatively small, about 5 football fields across, but its value could have single-handedly wiped out the national debt back in the 1980s. In order to mine these riches, the huge rock is moved by an electromagnetic engine called a mass driver. The mass driver turns the asteroid itself into an enormous rocket, using the least valuable parts of soil as a propellant. It will take the giant cargo 5 years to make its 1 billion-mile journey to the Earth's orbit. Back in 1947, the flying boat ushered in the first age of jumbo transports. Howard Hughes himself, the designer of the world's largest plane, took the controls while the world watched and ridiculed. No one seemed to believe the 200-ton craft would ever be airborne. They called the gigantic wooden plane the Flying Lumberyard, and the nickname Hughes really hated, the Spruce Goose. The flying boat did fly that day. The flight lasted less than a minute and less than a mile, but it was one of the most memorable in aviation history. That one brief moment proved that airships could move larger payloads than anyone had ever thought possible. Howard Hughes would have been impressed by the mass driver, which pushes 500 million tons of very valuable rock into Earth orbit. There, metals can be efficiently mined for use at home and in space. By moving this kind of industry off the Earth, we can help rid our planet of coal smoke and strip mining. Space wastes, in the form of gases and fine dusts, are swept out of the galaxy by the solar wind, leaving us a greener Earth. The year is 2071, and a cluster of spherical settlements form the first orbiting space colony. Each space city has already paid for itself several times over through the construction of solar power satellites, or SPSs as we've come to call them. SPSs provide energy to the people of the Earth, as well as to the 10,000 settlers living and working in this space city. Humans born in space grow up in the distant shadow of our parent planet in an Earth-like world. Artificial gravity allows a curious student to stroll through the park, observing animals that were nearly extinct on Earth. In a subtropical garden, 1/10 gravity provides the perfect aerobic exercise, human-powered flight. Since the dawn of commercial aviation, we've tried to make ourselves feel more at home in the air. As early as 1935, the Douglas Sleeper transport, the original DC-3, was equipped with 14 berths. The stewardesses were generally required to be registered nurses, and as one airline ad put it, "If I'd thought it was anything like this, I'd have been flying long ago." The 1930s also brought the age of the great dirigibles. Like airborne ocean liners, the airships made regular transatlantic crossings. Up to 100 elegant passengers enjoyed amenities such as music rooms. And for business travelers, there were spacious conference centers. People who were accustomed to the choppy seas of the North Atlantic or the turbulence of early aircraft were astonished at the calmness of the trip. At the time, it was considered the way to travel. Transportation has undergone a few changes since the 20th century. Now, an expeditionary vessel carrying a scientific community of 1,000 is on an extended tour of the outer planets. Their first encounter is with the ringed planet Saturn. The scientists are fascinated by the tens of thousands of ringlets that actually form Saturn's ever-changing halo. Planetary astronomers analyze the overwhelming new data, as others prepare to study Saturn's 17 moons. A chosen few board a probe bound for the giant moon Titan, which bears many similarities to Earth. They make final checks on the equipment that will measure the nitrogen-rich atmosphere that is so much like our own. In the coming years, the space explorers will be the first humans to visit the strangely tilted planet Uranus. Neptune, with its unique moons that orbit in opposite directions from each other. And deep into the cold, dark realm of Pluto and her icy moon, Charon. By the time it reaches the edge of our solar system, the expedition may find planets beyond Pluto, mysterious new worlds waiting to be discovered.
I do think there could be life on other planets because people have adapted to this planet and to the climate here, and I don't see why people could adapt or living creatures could adapt to other climates.
Kind of like to go to Saturn because the rings are, you don't really know much about it, and like the atmosphere, like how it's different. It's very different. That's why I like to go.
I think it'll be like everybody floating in the air, spaceships going all around, and all kinds of funny creatures crawling over, floating all over space and all. And I think it'll be fun.
The milestones of flight are measured by individual acts of courage, by pathfinders willing to lead us into the skies. Every epic moment in aviation has been a step into the unknown, a quest to expand our boundaries. When the Wright brothers' aircraft first lifted off the ground, the ancient dream of human flight became a reality. May 20th, 1927. The Spirit of St. Louis was about to soar into history. 25-year-old Charles Lindbergh impatiently waited for the weather to clear before attempting the first non-stop flight across the Atlantic Ocean. His mother bid him farewell, knowing that in the past year, 6 men had tragically died while trying to make the same flight. Lindbergh was not deterred. As the fuel-laden monoplane lumbered down the runway, spectators wondered if it would ever leave New York. But 33.5 hours and over 3,600 miles later, the Spirit of St. Louis landed safely in Paris. Charles Lindbergh returned to an outpouring of admiration for one man's courage. President Calvin Coolidge spoke for the nation when he said, "Our messenger of peace and goodwill has broken down another barrier of time and space." In the year 2081, humankind has embarked on another mission of peace and goodwill as we travel to a distant star some 35 trillion miles away. Radio telescopes on the moon have picked up a regular, repeated signal from another solar system. The purpose of this 30-year mission is to answer this intergalactic invitation. The 75 men and women on board the Starship are the first to extend a human hand of friendship to the inhabitants of another galaxy. The courageous volunteer crew consists of pilots, astronomers, engineers, robots, robotic experts, chemists, seismologists, educators, entertainers, historians, chefs, and a psychiatrist who helps everyone adjust to life in a limited society amidst the limitless realms of space. Propelled by a combination of fusion and antimatter, the Starship speeds through space at nearly half the speed of light. Even traveling at 90,000 miles per second, the explorers have had over 12 years to anticipate this moment of arrival. As they stand at the portals of a new world, the emissaries from Earth carry the dreams of our world with them. Whatever discoveries await them on the planet's surface, and whoever waits to greet them, will perhaps teach us more about ourselves and our own place in the universe. The year is 2087. A man and a woman are about to visit their ancestral home for the first time. As the Earth looms larger, they wonder about the people they will encounter, about their earthbound lifestyles, and about the planet itself. Leaving the space colony they've always thought of as home, the couple anticipates their visit to places that they've only seen on their video walls. From the moment they arrive at a spaceport near the city where their families once lived, they see a world that would have astonished their grandparents. Strangely, they feel an attachment for sights they've never seen before, people they've never known. There's a familiarity here despite the extraordinary scope and expanse that's so different from the boundaries of their space city. A familiarity that comes from a human connection in the midst of a technological world. Beyond the cities, beyond all the marvels created by mankind, the travelers discover that which is unique to the Earth. In the last 100 years, humans have visited nearly every planet in the solar system, but nowhere else have we seen the magnificence that is life in our world, the beauty and the majesty that is Earth. As they look back at our blue planet floating in the black silence of space, the visitors feel a new sense of belonging. For the first time, they realize we are all children of the Earth. Albert Einstein once said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Without imagination, there would be no progress. No hope of discovering what lies beyond the next horizon. The 10 flights you've just seen may or may not happen. It almost doesn't matter. What is important is that we keep dreaming and keep encouraging the next generation to fill their tomorrows with endless possibilities.